Time for another build, guys. Today we're going to be starting Eduard's P-51 Mustang. This is a new tooled kit. It's the CHATTANOOGA version. And as always, as you can see, I'm starting with the cockpit. Now this has got a lot of really nice detail throughout. So there's a lot of separate sprues. And I hope you enjoy the build as much as I did in making it. So as normal, we start with the cockpit. So this is going to have also the cockpit floor, the seat back, the seat, all that sort of good stuff. So starting with my side cutters, just nipping everything off and then tidying everything up with some finish sticks, some thinner sanders, whichever you want to call them. Once everything is together and I've primed it a black, I'm now going to start with the interior colour, which we saw was H58, which is like an interior green. Some of this cockpit, the floor, was a plywood wood, but it was painted over in black. So you'll see later on that I had some markings, or not markings as such, but where the plywood paint has worn away. Once it's all been painted, it's time to start adding some of the photo etch. Now I just use a tile and like a chisel type blade, some thick Gorilla Glue, and yeah, I just crack on with it. So first off, I'm going to cut it out using a hardback tile, and then I'm going to stick it on. If it's where I've cut it off and the tabs are too big, I will then gently just file it. So what I'm doing there, I'm just bending the photo etch, getting it like a weave, so to speak. So it looks more like fabric as opposed to metal. And then just trying to slot them in place and get them nice secure with some glue. Hopefully this will just be straightforward. Once the cockpit's done, it's time to now install it into the actual fuselage. So just slotting it in there and using some extra thin glue just to run it round all the places, and you can see it looks quite nice with all that photo etch on there and stuff like that. Don't need a lot of glue, it should just take it really nicely. And then when we join the fuselage half together, just with some clamps and some tape, I'm going to make sure it all squeezes together really nicely. I had a few little bits of problems with the belly radiator or scoop, or whatever you want to call it. So I just had to jig it up with a little bit with some pegs and whatever, just to keep it all straight. Overall, this went together really well. That's the only part where you can see there I had real issues with, and with the gun inserts. But other than that, it went together really nicely. Some beautiful fit, and some really nice detail. Once it was all together, it was time to prime it and then start looking at markings. So I'm doing roving rotor. So with this set, we get the actual stars and bars, we get the checkerboard nose, we get the 4 bolts and the actual roving rotor on there. So as you see, I've painted it white everywhere, and then going to use some masking tape to help take up the parts on the mask I need, which then I can position it, leaving behind the parts that I don't want just yet. And I'll be doing this for all the actual markings. When I'm doing like this, if I make a mistake or I put them in the wrong place, with them still connected to the tape, as long as you're careful, you can then take them off and reposition them. And there, just pulling it back on itself, you can see it's all nicely lined up, and now I can start looking at doing the rest and getting the actual paint on there. I'm going to do the same with the the roving rotor. Okay, so gently I'm going to pull it off. Okay, burnish it down and pull it off, and there you can see where it's coming off. So there we are, it's all off, and now we can position it onto the actual aircraft. Okay, we put it on in the right position, burnish it down, and then we'll be able to peel the tape off exactly the same as what we did before. When all the markings are in position, I can start painting the actual main colour of the roundels. This is just a Mr. Hobby, I think it was 326, which is my go-to for the US roundels. Now it's time to start the weathering process. So first off, I've just picked up a nice light grey, thinned it, and I'm going to start filling in these panels just to add some mottling effect underneath the actual main base coat. And then with the main belly coat, I'm just going to do some light thin coats, just building up the colour, so we get some faded sort of effect on the belly. Once that's done, it's time to move on to the main colour, and for this I'm going to start with a lighter shade like I did on the belly, before then moving on to the olive drab. So just filling in the centre of the panels at the moment, and then I'll go back over with some thin coats of olive drab to fill in all the panels and to give that faded look in there. And once all that is done and the masking is removed, that's what I'm left with. I think it looks really good myself. Not perfect, but really happy with that way it's turned out, with all the markings, with the nose and everything. So after that, we then move on to the wash, and I'm just using a MIG ammo wash. It's just my go-to one, especially for the top surfaces, and just running it into all the panel lines, and then I'll remove it. First, remove any excess with just a dry cloth, and then use some odorless thinner to remove the rest. So when you're moving the wash, I just do start with circular motions, and then I'll start doing it towards the actual airflow. So it's going backwards and forwards on the wings, just to get rid of all that excess. I should say that I'm doing this over a coat of Gallieri gloss varnish. So it's the Winsor & Newton water-based artist varnish, gloss varnish. It's really hard wearing. You just have to leave it for 24 hours for it to go off, and I can shoot it straight through my normal Neo airbrush. After that, there'll be a matte coat, again the Winsor & Newton Gallieri matte varnish, but now we're going to use some oil to do some more weathering. So this is the dot filter, or some people call it mapping. So all I'm doing is putting dots of oil paint all over the wing there, different colours. So if you want it faded, you use brighter colours. If you want it dirty, you use darker, more earth tones. And then this brush is just damp with thinners, odorless thinners, and I'm just blending it all together. Okay, so this is going to give me a look of as if it's, you know, there's some muck on there or it's been faded. And then I use a bigger, softer brush to blend it in some more. Okay. Once that's all dry, after a couple of days, I put another matte varnish on. Before then, I move on to some chipping. And I just got a piece of card and just some dull aluminium and a small brush. I'm just going to steadily start building up chips everywhere around hatches, wing roots, using either a brush or a sponge, and just, you know, gently building them up as I go along. You can also use artist watercolor pencils to simulate streaks and dirt and leaks and stuff like that. So you can just put them on wherever. You can leave them like that. You can wet them down to make them a little bit darker. Okay, so there you can just see I'm streaking about with a damp brush, and that will give you another nice effect. And the final part for me is to add some exhaust staining, starting off with XF 85, which is like a tire black. Okay, so really thin down paint, just doing the exhaust staining, and then I'll come back in with a lighter coat, just filling in some places. Okay, you can see that big grease oil streak that's normal for a Mustang, and you can see there that's the lighter colour I'm going to use a buff. I've also added some pigments to the wing roots, so here we go, and just really randomly with your airbrush point at it so it looks like smoke. Okay, so with that, she's all finished. Okay, so this is my take on Eduard's P-51 with the Crafting Well masking set. All markings, even the checkerboard on the nose, are all being painted by the airbrush, and I'm really happy how it's turned out. Anyway, that's it for now, fellas. I will see you on the next one. Stay safe. Bye for now.